Hello and welcome to SG Squared. Pastor Steve Gladen pulls from over 25 years of small group ministry experience to encourage and equip listeners like you to lead small group ministry. So let's listen and learn together.
Welcome to SG Squared. Steve Gladen on small groups. Derek here with the man of the hour, Steve Gladen. Steve, happy spring. How is it April already?
Well, it is April Fool's, but I was going to make a joke on it about who's the fool on this show or anything like that. But I thought, no. And then I wasn't going to show up for the recording, but then I thought, no, it's not a good April Fool's either. So, but everything's going good. Life is good. Life is robust. It's exciting. Good.
And I'm sure you've got modest temperatures there in sunny SoCal.
Very modest. It's always good in SoCal. And spring practice has happened. So lest we digress too early into the football season.
Well, give us a preview of what we've got on tap in this episode.
Yeah. I was trying to think through this as we're getting ready for this show. There's so many questions we always get asked. We get, childcare, how do you do childcare in your small group? How big can a small group get? We get are groups opened or closed, or, what's the life cycle of the group, or how do you get more leaders, or how do you get more coaches? There's so many questions that you and I have gone through in the last over a couple hundred episodes of doing this show in various forms. And what's amazing is so often the number one question we should be asking isn't getting asked. And we are such a relationally based ministry. In small group ministry, we are all about the relationship. But what happens so often is we just don't ask the question, which is the title of this episode is, how do you make sure it stays people focused and not program focused? Because so often small group ministry just gets distilled down into it's figuring out the programming, figuring out the systems, the structure, the strategy, and just cranking it out over and over again. But what can get lost in it, ironically, in the people business that we're in, is the people can get lost.
So the important question we don't ask enough is, how do we get them more people focused, right?
Correct.
So the big question is, how do we get them more people focused?
April Fools, not telling you the answer and all that good stuff. No, nothing like that. No, you just have to understand the power of one-to-one. How do you understand that meeting with people one-on-one is so valuable? You think in the analogy of the family, and we talk about many times how the Bible is based on a family system, is that you can do all kinds of activities with your kids. You can take them to all kinds of activities. You can do all these little things. But the real powerful, life-changing stuff that happens in your kid is not how many times you take them to Six Flags, not how many times you take them camping, not how many times you take them to Starbucks, although those things can foster questions and stuff like that. But it's when you have the one-on-one conversations with them, when they feel so comfortable with you that you have a one-on-one conversation. And it goes back to, we know it's about the relationships, but when you think through the family system, is that when I look at my kids growing up, our most powerful times is when we had that one-on-one gut level conversation. But, so often we forget that it is just about the relationships.
So it's just the big key factor is it's about the relationships. I love that. So another $1 million question. How do we do this? How do we get them to focus on the relationships?
Well, good question as always. But what I would say is that there's a couple facets to it. And let me unpack them, and this will kind of get into the meat of the show. I love what Rick always taught me. He always used to talk about how in his Bible, he would write the initials YBH. And it was always, yeah, but how? And so often I've always tried to make sure in small group ministry, when in the books I've written and stuff like that, is we talked about the yeah, but how. all the questions we listed in the front part of this show, if you read Small Groups with Purpose or Planning Small Groups with Purpose, you would get those answered in so many different ways. But the thing that I would say in this particular show is that there's 3 different aspects you have to go to. One is you got to meet with the person. You got to get to the person. I'll talk about that in a second. Then there's how do you get to know them personally? And then how do you get to know them professionally? So let me kind of unpack each one of these. One is you've got to be able to talk to them. And what happens so many times is we just email somebody and wait for them to reply, and they don't reply, and we email them again and stuff like that. But what I would say is that you've got to go through at least some different aspects of it. And that is, you got to go through different mediums. So you got to email them is the least effective. Texting them is probably one of the best effective ways, or calling them. If you're going to call them, text them your phone number and say, hey, I'm going to be calling you in a little bit. So when they see your cell number, that they won't just send it to voicemail. And I tell you, if you're not in their contacts, you're going to the voicemail. So you got to be able to get to them. But I have a lot of different people say, hey, I tried calling him. I tried texting him. I tried emailing him. What do I do next? And one of the things that I coach churches on being is be a lobby lurker. And, try to be weird about it. But if they have kids, be a lurker somewhere around the children's area, check-in and stuff like that. See if you can run into them. If they're more of a senior adult, they probably have a different pathway into the church, or you can try to hang out in different sections in your church because you can get to know them, but you gotta be willing to spend the time. Now at Saddleback at our main campus too, we have it feels like 400 different ways you can get in the building. So it's hard to figure that aspect out. But you've got to be able to say, okay, if I can't be effective at the church of doing that, then there's one thing I learned from the Buffini group. They're a real estate agency, and they would have this thing that they would do called Pop Bys. At first I kept on thinking it was Popeyes, like Popeye's chicken or Popeye the character, but it's Pop, P-O-P, By, B-Y, Pop By. And what they would encourage their people to do, and I thought this is so brilliant, is just to stop by someone's house. And I know that it is unseen in this time and age, but one of the things they do is they pop by, they leave a little token gift. Could be just a little mug with some instant coffee, the nice ones, or, hot chocolate, or, some drink or something like that. You can do a number of different things. But in this, you bring a little gift, and if for some reason they open their door, they answer the door because they see you, then what you can be able to do is to say, hey, I'm going to be here less than 2 minutes. I just wanted to give you this. I just want to say a quick prayer for you, and I'm going to let you go. Because sociologists will tell you that once you have made eye-to-eye contact with somebody, when they call or when they try to get in touch with you, it's going to be that much more harder to kind of ignore them and with that. And so that's part one of trying to get to know them. Thoughts, questions from Dr. Derek Olson.
So, I love it. I love the personal relational connection. I've mentioned before in previous episodes, like those times in ministry as a young youth pastor where I got I remember one time I got a card in the mail from our district youth director, and just, Derek, hey, thinking about you, praying for your ministry. I remember I felt like I was on cloud 9 getting this little card with a big paragraph, right? Small paragraph. Or times where I got that random phone call, from a fellow youth pastor or small group ministry leader, just wanting to talk or encourage. And then I remember being before pastoral ministry, being in just a churchgoer and getting, reached out at times to pastors, and the impact that had on me, right? Like, oh, they remembered my name. This is incredible. So I think what you're saying there, Steve, it's not hard, but it's just it's drowning out the noise to get to this most important stuff.
Yeah, you have to unlock it. And I even love what you said about a note, because that's another great way. I just got a letter from someone from 20 who wrote me about a situation 20 years ago and how I impacted them. And it was a priceless note that I got from them. And I think it's a great way. So email, text, call, drop a note. Love it. Better fourth point.
There you go. And our next point.
Yeah. The next part, once you finally made contact with them, then there's a personal way to get to know them and a professional way to get to know them. Now, the personal way to get to know them is there's an acrostic called SPEAK. And just let me walk through that. The S is story. And when you're going to meet somebody, you got to talk to them. One of the first thing you can do is say, hey, what's your story? It doesn't matter where they start their story. The fact is you start to get to know their story. So part of what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to say, I value you and let me hear your story. And as you get to know it, start to listen to find out the P in SPEAK is what are their passions? What are the passions that make them go? Now, if that doesn't come up in their story, then just ask them, be able to say, hey, what are some of the things that you're really passionate about? And two things you want to listen for are like the hobbies that they like to do. Think through, some of those passion points of that. And then if not that, you also want to listen for family pieces and start to listen for their family. If you don't hear about their family, then circle back with them and say, hey, Derek, I remember you telling me your story and everything, and that you like to have this cool little Instagram channel on, hieroglyphics and going to see mummies and, the pyramids and all this crazy stuff that if you guys don't know that, you got to watch Derek's channel on that. But, I would want to say, hey, are you married? Do you have kids? Stuff like that. And he'd say, yes, I do. I'm married to Julie. She puts up with me a lot about that. I know I got Azariah as my daughter, stuff, things like that. And so you want to start to get to know what their passions are. Hopefully there's a family connection with it. And there's also, the hobby side. After the P, which you want to go to is the E, and that is how can you give them encouragement? And part of that kind of goes into a couple different buckets. One is you want to start to listen is what's their love language? What is it that, kind of builds them up? Though they may talk about, it's through people speaking words to me, which would be words of affirmation, or people that like to spend time with me, which is time in that. And there's 5 love languages that are there that you want to be able to listen for and say, do I have those? Don't know the 5 love languages? Just Google the 5 love languages and you'll pick those up really quick. The other thing that you want to list with an encouragement is trying to figure out when's their birthday, when's their anniversary with their spouse, what's their spouse's name, their kid's name, their kids' birthdays. Because if you want to bond to somebody, that is be able to, wish them a happy birthday. Derek is, born on Groundhog's Day. So every groundhog, when I see Puxatawny Phil, I go, oh, it's Derek's birthday. I got to wish him happy birthday. When Julie, his wife, that is, let's say she's 30 or let's say she's 40, my math is easier, then I know she's really 10 because her birthday falls on leap year day, which is,
Right.
the 29th. So she's 4, that might divide by 4. And that's how old she really is. Really, really crazy. After a while, you start to look a little bit pervertish, I'm 40, my wife is 10. So with that, and then of course, Azariah born on Halloween. So, there's things you start to learn about people that you go, oh, wow, let me kind of get to know that. But again, encouragement comes from knowing their love language and knowing, what's important to them, like their generally birthdays, anniversary, and their kids' birthdays and different pieces like that. when you did the A is what are the different abilities that people have? And these are talents that they use and they do a lot of times through their hobbies, but not always. But the thing is, there's something called the Benjamin Franklin effect. Little quiz, Derek. Do you happen to know what the Benjamin Franklin effect is before I dig into your history book?
I don't think so.
See, all your history is about from 4,000 years and before,
Right.
trying to get you into the current,
Like
centuries, but you're failing. But the Benjamin Franklin effect is that we found is that when you ask people in their natural abilities, if you ask them to help you, psychologically, it has effect of bonding them to you, that they like you. Case in point example, one of my neighbors loved tools. He had every tool in the world. Well, I used to borrow all his tools because A, I'm cheap and I'm going, why would I buy them? But B, the other thing is I wanted to get closer to him so he could find out his spiritual journey. And before you think I'm a cheapskate, I'd always buy him a gift card to like Lowe's or Home Depot, wherever he liked to go, in that season to be able to say thank you. But the point is that our conversation grew close. We grew closer together because I knew his abilities and I would ask him for help in using those abilities. And then actually I picked up and learned a lot. And the last part before Derek, I'll get your feedback, is knowledge, and always trying to ask people, what's a book you're reading? What's a podcast you're listening to? What's something on YouTube that you've listened to recently that you think would help me out? And so part of when you're trying to get to know somebody personally is the speak acrostic. What's the story? What's the passion? What's their encouragement you can give them? What's the abilities? And what's the knowledge base that they have? So that kind of helps the personal side after you've gotten to get to connect with them.
I love that acrostic speak. And I would tell our audience to think of it in terms of them speaking to you so you can listen, right? Because who doesn't want to be heard? And it takes it to a whole nother level when you can get to that level where you've opened up a place in their heart, right? For them to speak to you so you can hear them, and they're telling you about their life and their passions and these things. I think it just builds that connection between two humans, especially a ministry leader and somebody in your small group or somebody in your church. It's one thing to get an email from a pastor or a ministry leader. It's a whole nother thing to have a conversation like this. And, once you do, it's like, man, you're connected. And there's just so much more that can happen after that point. So I love that acrostic.
Yeah. It's one of these things I hope you guys are starting to understand. I know it takes longer to have those conversations, but what can happen very quickly, and I know this from decades of experience, is that very quickly, if you're not careful, your small group ministry, which is the discipleship engine, the leadership engine of your church, can very quickly turn into a program-based ministry where people get lost and you don't know what's really happening in their lives, which is why scalability is so important. Maybe we'll do a show on scalability, because if you can't scale, then your ministry will collapse. Fun fact, that nothing grows over 9 inches without a skeletal system, because you can't scale up. And so there's so many things that you have to remind me on that, Derek. What should we do a show on and stuff like that? Okay, we're going to close out the show with this little piece quickly. We've talked about, relationships are the key, because when you spend time with people, you become a trusted resource. You can speak the truth into them. But we've talked about you've got to get in front of them somehow, face to face, and some different ways. We talked about that, 4 main ways, if you want to go back and listen because you forgot already. And then we talked about, okay, once you got them in front of you, where do you go? And instead of going to the tactical things of small group ministry, about what they've done or haven't done. You want to go to the place of being able to say, hey, let me get to know you. When we talk about the speak acrostic, then once you've got that mastered, then you can start to dig into the church side of it. And before you ask the tactical questions like, hey, I see you didn't fill out your roster, help me out and fill out your roster, or, help me out with what you're studying, or you haven't gone to leader training 2 yet. I want you to do that, or whatever it is, tactically speaking, your small group ministry. I would encourage you that once you know them, pull them into what would help their small group ministry be better. And that is, take them through an exercise called the 4 helpful lists. Help them feel a part of the small group ministry, not just a cog or a wheel that helps this thing happen or be successful. And that is, what's working. And in that, you're trying to find the praises out with the people. What's wrong, you're trying to see together, okay, what needs to be changed or taken care of. The other one is what's confusing, and that is what needs clarity. And the fourth thing is, what's missing and what needs to be added. So really quick, what's right, what's wrong, what's missing, and what's confusing and what's missing. What's confusing is the way I pitched all 4 of those things. Man, it's so chaotic with that. But when you ask those questions, what's right, and you hear praises, people quickly understand that as bad as they may think that your ministry is going, they will come to the place where saying, well, something is going right. And by you making them a personal part of these questions kind of helps them feel like they care. I want to be heard. And then being able to go, what's wrong, what's confusing, and what's missing, helping them understand, does it need to be changed? Does it need to be clarified? Or is it just missing and you've got to add it? And so those 4 questions will help you kind of take the small group ministry to the next level. Thoughts on that, Derek, before I wrap it up?
Well, the 4 helpful lists, that is a great tool. I remember several years ago when you introduced me to that list, and I ended up using that thing all the time. I wore that out, not just with the network stuff we were doing, but with other things in my own personal life. 4 helpful lists, it just kind of brings clarity with these little pathways. So I would really encourage people listening, small group point people, use that yourself. And then, use that as a tool to help others unlock what they need to unlock. But love that acrostic or that list.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up, don't let the ministry that we know is relational, that we really care about, miss the most essential part. And that is getting to know the people. And part of the time we are so far behind the game, which is why we wrestle with trying to connect with people. And if you've already been able to do that, that's great, but help go a layer or 2 deeper by walking them through the speak acrostic and the 4 helpful lists before you drill them on not being at something or not filling something out. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to miss the most valuable thing in that. And that is being able to say, I'm connecting with these people. And I would just encourage you, when you look at your week, when you look at your work week, ask yourself, how many people other than staff or, some people that are people you've known in the church forever, how many people are you connecting with that are connected to your small group ministry? And you don't get too many jobs that want you to have as many breakfasts, lunch, dinners, morning coffees, mid-morning coffees, early afternoon coffees, late afternoon coffees with people, so you can do these very things together. So don't let the people get lost in our very people-oriented ministry.
Well said. Don't let the people get lost in our people-oriented ministry. That is a tweet right there. We want to thank everybody for watching this episode or listening to this episode. We really hope that it encouraged you. A couple things real quick we would ask you to do. Please like this episode from wherever you are watching or listening, especially if it's on YouTube or something. And if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review. Really helps us to break through the algorithms. And lastly, Steve, do you want to mention the lobby gathering?
Yeah. For those of you that are familiar with that, very quickly coming up in May, we have the lobby gathering, which is really just a networking event. It's happening May the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right after Mother's Day, the 12th, 13th, and 14th. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's a 3-day event that gives you an opportunity to get to know other small group pastors. We have to cap it at about 110, which we've sold out the last 5 years. But we want you to be a part of it, to be able just to see and to grow together with others. We know that peer-to-peer, iron sharpens iron. And so, there's some evening times where we talk about subjects that you wouldn't normally do. But then the rest of the event is just, we arrange circles that are going to house different conversations that you can jump in and jump out of. It's really just a fun time together over those 3 days, just to be with other small group pastors or point people that are just connecting all throughout the world and mainly through the United States. So it's a great time. You can go to smallgroupnetwork.com, just look at our events page and see more about the lobby.
All right. Well, we hope to see you at the lobby. Got a few spots left, so grab them while you can. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. We will see you next month. Thanks, guys.
See you later.
Thank you for listening. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to go deeper and get more resources or join the Small Group Network, just head over to smallgroupnetwork.com. We'll see you next time.